For 32 years, Joni Mitchell carried a secret that would have destroyed her career. In 1965, something happened that she couldn't talk about. Not to her parents, not to her fans, not even to her closest friends. She put the pain into her songs instead. Millions sang along to both sides now without knowing the truth. In 1996, she finally broke her silence. What she revealed shocked everyone. But the real tragedy happened when she tried to fix the past. Joni Mitchell was born on November 7, 1943, in Fort Macleod, Alberta. Her full name was Roberta Joan Anderson. From the start, life wasn't easy. Her father, Bill Anderson, served as a flight lieutenant in the Royal Canadian Air Force. Because of his job, the family moved a lot from base to base across Canada. Her mother, Myrtle, worked as a school teacher, trying to keep some sense of order. But the constant moving made Joni feel like she never truly belonged anywhere. She was always the new kid, always adjusting. This feeling of not having a place to call home would stay with her and shape her art in powerful ways. It was this early restlessness that later poured into her songs about longing and identity. When Joni was 9 in 1953, she got polio. It was a terrifying illness back then. She spent weeks in the hospital away from her family and friends. The disease left her back twisted and caused her pain that lasted for the rest of her life. Years later, she would also suffer from post-P polio syndrome, which brought back weakness and fatigue. That fight with polio taught her how fragile life could be, but it also made her stronger. Inside, you can hear that fight in her music, in the way she sings about survival and struggle. During that same difficult time, Joni did something unexpected. At just 9 years old, while still recovering from polio, she started smoking. It was her way of rebelling, of taking control when everything else felt out of her hands. The habit didn't harm her voice, though. That voice went on to become one of the most unique and celebrated in music. Even as a child, she showed the boldness that would mark her entire career. School was never easy for her. Joni didn't care much for regular studies, but she fell in love with painting. That was where she truly shined. She saw herself as a painter first, and her eye for color and detail shaped the way she wrote songs. She went to art school to develop her skills, and that visual sense stayed with her in her music. Her lyrics painted pictures, and her albums felt like works of art. In grade 12, Joni made a bold move. She dropped out of school. That choice took her down a risky path. She found herself hanging out with people who lived on the wrong side of the law. She later admitted she got too close to that world. But even in that dark chapter, she gathered stories and feelings that would later fill her songs. Somehow she pulled herself out and chose music as her way forward. In 1964, Joni was 19, an art student in Calgary. When her life took another hard turn, she became pregnant. The baby's father, a fellow student, abandoned her. His only response was to hand her a poem. That was it. No help, no support. Joni was left completely alone, facing the shame and fear of single motherhood at a time when society was cruel to women in her situation. When she gave birth to her daughter, Kelly Dale Anderson, she kept it a secret. Not even her parents knew. That was how deep the fear of disgrace. When in the 1960s, Joni hid the pregnancy and the birth, struggling on her own through all the pain and worry. In the end, she made the hardest choice of her life. She gave up her baby for adoption. It tore her apart. Her friend, Lori Wilson, said it was like hell for Joni. She mourned deeply, but she saw no other way. There was no father to help, no money, and the weight of society's judgment was too much. That heartbreak stayed with her and shaped who she became. It gave her songs their depth and their honesty. Joni couldn't speak openly about the pain, so she put it into her music. She started performing in coffee shops, pouring her grief into every song. That sorrow became her strength. It gave her art a power that set her apart. It made her songs personal and true. Her style became known for its rawness and courage, and it inspired other artists to be just as open. In early 1965, Joni Mitchell was just 21 years old. She was living in Toronto trying to make it as a folk singer. At the same time, she was facing the harsh reality of being an unwed mother in a society that judged her at every turn. She had a newborn daughter named Kelly Dale Anderson. The pressure and shame were crushing her. That March, in a small folk club called the Penny Farthing, she met Chuck Mitchell. He was 29, tall, confident, and already part of the New York folk scene. Their meeting was fiery. From the start, Joni told him he'd messed up the lyrics to a Bob Dylan song. During his set, Chuck, instead of being offended, was drawn to her spirit. Within 36 hours, he asked her to marry him. They waited 2 months and got married in June 1965. Joni thought this marriage might be her chance to get her daughter back from foster care. She was desperate for stability, and Chuck seemed like her best hope, but what seemed like salvation soon became something else. The marriage wasn't born from love. It was born from Joni's need and Chuck's promises. He told her he'd help her reclaim her daughter. But after the wedding, that promise faded. The focus shifted to their careers. Kelly was eventually put up for adoption. Joni kept that heartbreak hidden for decades. The pain of losing Kelly and the betrayal she felt from Chuck weighed on her. What she had hoped would bring her peace only brought more sorrow. Chuck didn't just fail to help Joni. He made things worse. When Joni shared her new song, Both Sides Now, he laughed at her. He made her feel small. That song, which the world would later love and celebrate, was dismissed by the man she thought she could trust. His criticism shook her again and again. Chuck chipped away at her confidence. He controlled their money. He made sure they performed as a duo so that she couldn't shine on her own. He didn't want to raise another man's child, and he didn't want Joni's star to rise higher than his. Joni felt trapped. She had married him hoping for freedom, but instead, she found herself in a cage. In 1967, after less than 2 years of this painful marriage, Joni left. The divorce was final that year. She packed up and drove alone to New York City. That drive